Last century, old-time gold prospectors mined for gold they could see. But today in Nevada, gold prospectors are striking it rich, mining for gold that is literally microscopic.
Well, you can see a lot of gold, little specks of gold all through that.
Geologist John Livermore discovered this so-called invisible gold. He followed up on an obscure 1930s report by a government engineer about some worthless-looking rocks that contain gold.
The key phrase was this was a type of deposit that the old-timers could have missed, right on the surface, because it didn't pan.
So Livermore performed lab tests on more rocks and was amazed at the discovery.
It was so much better than we'd ever dreamed about. I mean, it was many times what we thought we'd find.
His strike in 1961 led to the discovery of more than 30 gold mines. Those mines have produced $18 billion in gold since 1990. And now the U.S. is second only to South Africa in producing gold. It takes money to make this money. Newmont Mining Company says it can take up to 10 years and $100 million to develop one mine. An average of 25 tons of rock must be crushed to squeeze just 1 ounce of gold. And most miners never see the scorching river of gold that is poured into the final product. Each brick of gold weighs 50 pounds and is worth an estimated $250,000 based on today's gold prices. From here, this gold will eventually be sold on the open market. In search of more gold, mining companies are now going underground. It's costlier, but the quality of gold can be 30 times higher.
I think it's more than a rush. I mean, there's a lot more yet to be found.
The new gold rush has turned small desert towns like Elko into boom towns, creating an industry in Nevada that's second only to gambling.
We're quite confident that the industry will have a life of another 20 years.
An industry that started because one man saw wealth where others saw only waste. Farland Chang, NBC News, Elko, Nevada.
Turn towards me, John. Yeah.
So can I have a chili dog?
This is no typical hot dog stand in Los Angeles.
Judge dog, the jury dog, or the plaintiff dog. I like the judge dog better because it has chili.
The aforementioned acts, plaintiffs have suffered.
And this lawyer of 33 years is no typical hot dog stand owner.
I'm just trying to make our profession look a little better, a little bit more appealing.
Oh, onions, right?
For the past 20 years, Kim Pierman's stand has been selling law dogs while he serves legal advice.
The answer is you could sue the bank in a small claims court and allege that they were negligent because they didn't provide security.
A friend was framed. I want to know how to clear him so he can get a job.
We have a 15-year-old son, and maybe 3 or 4 months ago, he contracted lead poisoning.
Once a week, customers line up at Law Dogs to get a healthy serving of help. The dogs cost about $1.50. The advice is free.
He hasn't done anything. Because he basically breached a contract. That's what you want to do. You want to give him a notice of rescission, rescind the contract.
Okay.
And I just wonder if that's a consumer violation. I'd have to look it up to know for sure. Could be. You got to go where the defendant resides in small claims. So if he's downtown, it's a downtown case. The insurance probably is only going to cover the structure. It's not going to cover your personal property.
What would this cost you otherwise?
Anywhere from $100 to $500 just to say, hi, may I ask you a question?
Pierman says for $50,000, he sold the rights to his story to Walt Disney back in the 80s, which considered making a sitcom about his work here at the stand. And who would have played the lead?
I said, would you use Robert Redford? Because I was thinking, handsome guy. And they said, no, they were thinking more about Danny DeVito. So I said, well, okay.
The TV show never happened, but Pierman's free advice is still being served with relish. Farland Chang, NBC News, Los Angeles.
Welcome to the concert for the next generation.
This is the new sound and fresh look of an old message.
We need a new birth that Jesus promises to give us.
The Billy Graham Crusade is reaching out to the younger flock with help from MTV-style ads.
Come. Admission is free and open to anyone who wants to feel like this inside.
Well, I think what you do is you try to meet them with a message that maybe they don't understand with a method that they do.
What they understand is the internet. That's where Graham is posting ads to promote his crusades. One irreverent ad says, 50,000 sinners in one place. And you don't think you'll have fun?
This way, folks. Only open doors, please.
They also understand music, so Graham is using popular Christian bands, Generation X interpreters of the Bible.
Our hope is really to be a catalyst for some deep thought about our faith.
These bands help to soften the hearts of young people, a generation that statistics show is outside the grasp of the church.
They need to continually replenish their ranks, and they need to do that with children and youth, because if they don't, within a generation, they'll disappear.
Over the past 2 decades, mainstream Christian churches have been losing their members, mostly due to aging. Some denominations have experienced declines as high as 30%. But during that same period, conservative groups like Billy Graham's have increased their numbers dramatically.
Let's pray. We thank you for all this great crowd of people, and especially the young people that are here from many parts of Northern California. We pray that thou wouldst bless each one.
I'm happy. It's fun, and the praying thing was kind of cool because everybody suddenly got quiet.
Sometimes the easiest way to have a religious experience is to simply have a religious experience.
A new tune to an old song, and for now at least, more young people appear to be singing. Farland Chang, NBC News, Los Angeles.
Thank you.
Seattle, home to some of the hottest names in coffee, is now serving a fresh new one.
Who's having the cappuccino?
Like the others, Habitat Espresso is out to do well, but even more, it's out to do good.
I appreciate working in a place where the profits are going to charity.
Every cup for a cause. That's the dream of owner Jeff Reifman.
It's a great way to use your money. Once you try it, it gives a lot back to you.
After 6 years of fixing software at Microsoft, the 27-year-old Reifman made enough to follow his heart. So he opened his coffee house by investing $250,000 and setting up a website.
People can also send email to the charities that we're working with.
Half of any profits go to 2 charities. One, a nursery for children in crisis. The other, a food bank for people with AIDS.
Someone like Jeff who can bring $40,000 or $50,000 to us at one shot makes a significant difference.
The other half of the profits would be poured into offshoots of the coffee house, such as a bookstore or a record shop. Reifman believes he can succeed by building charity into people's daily lives.
Cappuccino.
In a city which takes its coffee seriously, the people who come here are trying to satisfy more than their taste buds.
For me, it's a draw, because I would like to spend my money in a place where I know it's going to go for something good.
The gist of it is that you're feeding your addictions and at the same time you're feeding your convictions.
What we've tried to do here is create a place that's where you can come in and know your money's going right back to the community, supporting people that you care about.
Just 2 weeks old, the business is only breaking even so far. No profits to be shared yet, but Reefman has high hopes. Farland Chang, NBC News, Seattle. Nearly 3,000 feet above the coast of Big Sur, in the Los Padres National Forest, an experiment is underway to restore life. These biologists have been providing a diet of calf meat to 5 young condors in the hope that they will eventually fend for themselves. But until the birds reach 7 months old, they are being reared in an enclosed pen that resembles their natural habitat. Condor specialist Shay Hillary is preparing to send them back into the wild.
I very much feel like a mother sending my children off to college. You know, they're leaving the nest.
In the early 80s, there were only 22 condors either in the wild or in captivity. Today, there are 133 in Arizona and California, the result of a program run by nonprofit groups and coordinated by the government. The condors became endangered after years of people shooting them, collecting their eggs, and leaving behind carcasses contaminated with poison from gunshot pellets. So in the late 80s, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service took a bold step. It removed the last condors from the wild and used them to speed up the breeding process. The San Diego Zoo helps out by incubating and hatching the eggs.
We have them in captivity specifically to produce numbers that can be released back to the wild.
Shay Hillary's group rears the condors when they reach 5 months old and about 20 pounds. These birds, the largest in North America, with their 9-foot wingspans, have some space to exercise. They start to bond, which is vital for these scavengers to survive. And they learn from this bird with the orange head, an adult female role model. The night before the release, biologists chased the condors into their respective dens and, if necessary, physically grab them, a process they asked us not to show, but one they say is needed to make the birds fearful of humans.
Let her rip, Shay.
When the doors open, 3 young condors step out. They can now fly through an opening in the net. Instead, one flies onto the net. Later, a second bullies himself onto a pole, but none leave. Scientists say they may not want to leave their adult role model, who is kept behind to rear the next group of chicks.
It sounds like they're waiting for one bird to commit.
On the 4th day, the birds finally ventured outside the nest, making it 39 condors now living in the wild, relics of the Ice Age no longer doomed. Farland Chang, NBC News, Big Sur, California. Vic and Nancy Brenner of Huntington Beach, California, are about to take a vacation, but one member of their family must stay behind.
She's a Bichon Frise, and she's just kind of like our little daughter, and our life revolves right around her.
That's why they are relieved their baby has a home away from home.
I need an available caretaker to admit Callie Brenner to Suite 304, please.
Call it a palace for pets, a place where Fido and Fluffy can check into their own private suite, complete with chandeliers and brass headboards to enhance the elegance, Monet prints and mini stairways for exercising mind and body, and for the beast within, colorful goldfish, just in case guests become bored with the entertainment on TV.
I know. We'll put in the bathtub. In the bathtub? Yeah.
We have clients that drive from West LA, from Palm Springs, all over to board here.
I have a boarder check-in, please.
Peggy Rich and her family have run a pet hospital for 20 years. Last year, they built a few hotel suites as an alternative to steel cages. Since then, owners have been begging for more.
When I said, let's go to the pet hotel, he says, yay! He gets so excited.
Will they be able to see each other? Oh, they'll be right next door to one another, can kiss and hug and walk together and do everything. Okay.
Americans are pampering their 4-legged children as never before, in large part because their 2-legged children have grown up. or because they never had children.
And what does she like to eat? Dry?
She likes it actually with a little cottage cheese if you have it.
Luxury does not come cheap. While regular kennels cost $10 a night, doting owners pay 4 times more for an exclusive penthouse. That's almost $300 a week.
The dogs are happy, they're not frightened. It's clean and beautiful, and it's worth everything, and there are children.
Guests are also cuddled and walked 3 times a day. Peggy Rich says the only problem is when it's time to leave. A few dogs have run away from home and shown up back here. Farland Chang, NBC News, Newport Beach, California. In the fields of Orange County, California, A.G. Kawamura is a third-generation farmer who practices what his parents preached.
As many parents do, they teach you that waste is not good.
So Kawamura opened his fields to an age-old practice that is finding new practitioners, gleaning. Volunteers salvage what is left behind from a harvest and give what they glean to the needy. It was Charlene Turco who persuaded Kawamura to allow gleaners onto his farm. It's been going on for 10 years.
The most important thing for me is that we need to teach responsibility to our children, that they can make a difference.
They started with just a small core of volunteers, saving what would otherwise be plowed back into the soil. Soon word spread, and today as many as 800 volunteers come out once a month. From Girl Scouts and the blind to church groups and senior citizens.
The main thing with me is I just hate to see food go to waste.
Especially when the need is so great. It's estimated that 9.2 million people in the U.S. suffer from hunger, and more than 10% of the U.S. population relies on nonprofit groups for their food. The U.S. Agriculture Department estimates that 96 billion pounds of food goes to waste every year. And if just 1/3 of that amount is salvaged, it would be enough to feed nearly 500,000 people every day for a full year. U.S. Agriculture Secretary Dan Glickman says gleaning is one way to fight hunger in America.
You feed hungry people, you prevent good, nutritious food from being thrown in the garbage, you encourage volunteerism, you supplement the national government programs. If you're a liberal or a conservative, a Republican or a Democrat, almost everybody agrees this is a good thing to do.
The USDA is starting a new national volunteer program. 13 states by this summer, all 50 states by the year 2000.
It's fun because we're helping poor people get food that don't have a lot of money.
Over the years, Kawamura's volunteers have salvaged more than 2 million pounds of fresh product from his farm and others nearby. And what they harvest is distributed to nearly 300 shelters, churches, and soup kitchens throughout Orange County.
A lot of good stuff in there.
Within 48 hours of being picked, fresh produce, peas, celery, and carrots are chopped and boiled and served to the hungry.
I feel very good. I love agriculture. I love being a farmer. I love thinking that I'm part of a wonderful tradition of providing food.
A tradition now being passed on to a new generation. Farland Chang, NBC News, Irvine, California.
They're still looking at leaving Chicago Monday, Tuesday, or perhaps even as late as Wednesday.
All right, NBC's Ann Thompson, thanks so much. And we're going to go now to St. Louis, where NBC's Farland Chang is standing by. Farland, what's the latest there?
Hello, Patty Ann. It is sunny here in St. Louis as well, but it still feels like a freezer. Temperature now 16 degrees, but factor in that chill from the wind, and it feels like below 20 degrees. A lot of people here in this community have not even begun to shovel out the snow from their sidewalks, and when they do, they are going to be in for quite a workout. You got to go through about an inch and a half of ice before you even get to the surface of this sidewalk. People are being advised to not overexert, especially if you've got a heart condition. The gentleman over here behind me, that's Don Steck. He says that the folks here in St. Louis are just not accustomed to the 8 to 12 inches of snow that came down. Maybe 2 to 3 inches is what they're used to. And over here we've got a resident. She has decided not to leave her home the entire week. Let's talk to this woman here. This is Tammy Wharton and her daughter Brianna. Tammy, can you tell us how you've been holding up?
Well, we stocked up before I got here, and we've been staying in since. It's been good.
What did your boyfriend tell you?
Pardon me?
What did your boyfriend tell you to do?
He told me if it snowed, not to go anywhere. 2 hours later, it started snowing, so we've been here.
All right, well, he's concerned about your safety as well as your brand new car, I understand.
Yes.
How about your daughter? How's she holding up?
She loves it. She likes to play in the snow, and we get to bring the dog in, so it's been good for her.
Okay, well, glad you've been able to hold up through this. As far as the update over at the airport, Lambert International Airport says that TWA is trying to resume most of its flights. Of course, it's not able to fly into those cities where the airlines are not in service. As far as the churches, hundreds of them in this area have canceled their morning services, and the school districts are saying that they are possibly going to cancel their classes tomorrow. Patty Ann.
Well, one thing for the kids to be excited about, I guess. Thanks so much, Farland Chang.
Sure thing.
Fabulous. That was wonderful. I'm so glad we took you. That was
Super.
great. Thank you.
Cheers.
Snow.
Let's swing over to Soledad O'Brien, MSNBC, for another look at our news this Saturday morning. Soledad, good morning again.
Good morning, Jack. Good morning, Jody. Good morning, everybody. The new year kicks off with a huge snowstorm that is charging through the Midwest, expected to dump as much as 1.5 feet of snow. Near blizzard conditions have prompted police and rescue officials to urge people not to travel. Shelves are empty as people prepare to be homebound for a while. Airlines are expecting big delays in the Midwest hubs. In St. Louis, TWA has canceled all flights until noon. NBC's Farland Chang is there this morning. He joins us with the very latest. Good morning, Farland.
Good morning, Soledad. On a clear morning here from High Point, you should be able to see the famous St. Louis Arch behind me, but on this morning, it's virtually invisible because of this storm. We're getting this hard snow coming down to add to the 6-8 inches of snow that have already fallen onto some parts of St. Louis. Now, for most of the night, we've had freezing rain, and that has put this glaze of ice onto the roadways, creating very dangerous conditions. The street city crews have been out there plowing for 12-hour shifts. They're expected to use twice as much salt on this snow compared to all of the storms from last year. A number of accidents out there, trucks jackknifing, cars losing control. We're expecting another 4 to 6 inches of snow today. Add to that the 30-mile-an-hour winds. It's going to be very blustery. And as you mentioned, over at the airport, Lambert International, all of the flights up until 12 noon on TWA have been canceled. Back to you.
Ugh, what a mess. Okay, NBC's Farland Chang. Farland, thanks a lot.
You bet.
In a small town in Quebec, hundreds.
Well, Jody and Linda, I'm here at the newsstand on the 3rd Street Promenade. A lot of avid readers of local as well as foreign newspapers. Here's the Weekly Telegraph from Britain. The headline, Clinton, I will never resign. Public opinion starts to run against beleaguered president. I have with me a former reporter for this newspaper. This is Katrina Ure, who actually drew a parallel between President Clinton and Prince Charles in terms of these tapes. Now, you don't want these tapes released. Talk about that parallel.
I just don't think we need further proof that he's lied. We've known right from the beginning he's lied. I almost feel sorry for him, that the humiliation he's having to undergo, you know, the obsessive attention on his sexual life and all the sexual details. I remember with Prince Charles, with the scandal with Camilla, when the tapes came out, the Camilla tapes, and his reference to tampons and goodness knows what. You know, it's private, it's between two people. The public shouldn't have to listen to all this. I think it's unfair for the public and for him.
All right, thank you. And over here we have Leslie Bavardos. You supported the president, but you're embarrassed about him now. You don't want to see these tapes, though.
No, I don't want to see the tapes. I don't think they will prove anything any more than what the transcripts will actually prove.
Okay, thank you. Despite the controversy, President Clinton plans to steam forward. He's going to be coming out here next week for a fundraising mission before the election coming up in a little more than 2 weeks. Back to you.
Okay, Farland, thank you so much. Fundraising is what the president is doing in Ohio today. In Cincinnati, in fact. Yep. Okay, we want to go back to the phone. Stephanie. President Clinton's videotape testimony should be released. Farland, what are you hearing?
Yes, Linda, a variety of opinions, but a lot of them in support of the president in terms of trying to keep that videotape out. Here's how the Daily News is playing it. The headline, GOP's video gamble. This is Los Angeles, the capital of movie making, and one movie title that seems appropriate is Sex, Lies, and Videotape. I have with me one person, an aspiring filmmaker, also a restaurant cook. This is Kevin Rooks. Kevin, what do you think about that videotape? Do you think that the president's testimony should be made public, that it's the right of the public to see it, or do you think we've had enough?
Well, first of all, I do think we've had enough. I think if the president's done anything wrong, it's his business, being that it's on the sexual content. I don't think it's anyone else's business to see what the president has done other than running this country. The president has brought this country back to #1, literally, financially.
All right, thank you. And over here we have Alan Shane, a wine and spirit importer. Alan, what do you think about that tape? Do you think that the public needs to see it for themselves to determine if he was lying?
I don't think they need to see it. I think this is something we want to put past us already and let the president get on with the business of running the company, which I think he's done rather well over the past 6 years.
And it's not surprising because California has generally been more supportive than other states of President Clinton. Back to you, Linda.
All right, Farland, thanks for that. We'll be checking in with you a little bit later. Now, meanwhile, Jody's been monitoring the email.
People around the world are hoping to see today's Leonid meteor shower, a spectacular celestial light show. NBC's Farland Chang is with stargazers at the Griffith Park Observatory in California with the latest. And it should be a big show tonight, eh, Farland?
Well, it should be, assuming you can get away from the cloud cover and the bright city lights. Right now here at the Griffith Observatory, astronomers are delighted that school children are coming in full of questions about the Leonid meteor storm. Unfortunately for North America, the peak of the spectacle is coming up at midday. But tonight, as you mentioned, there is that one more opportunity to view. If you can get away from all those obstacles, you should be in for quite a spectacular light show. In effect, you're looking at the Earth passing through this long trail of dust left behind by the comet Tempel-Tuttle, something that happens once every 33 years. Now, the particles left behind are very small, ranging in size from a small marble to specks of sand. However, they're moving very fast, 100 times faster than the speeding bullet. And so they pose dangers to the 600 satellites orbiting the Earth. Satellite operators are taking precautions so as not to disrupt any service to cell phones, pagers, computer links. So far, no reports of any major damage. Gelson?
A lot of eyes on the sky tonight. Okay, NBC's Farland Chang. In other news, First Lady Hillary Rodham Clinton started off
and take care of the people in this country. Back to you, Jody.
All right, Farland, thank you very much for that update. NBC's Farland Chang in Denver for us today. NBC News correspondent Farland Chang has spent the past couple of days at several waterlogged towns along the Ohio River, and he joins us today live from Utica, Indiana. What's the latest there, Farland?
Bridget, I'm across the river from Louisville, and right now I'm standing on a street that is normally located next to the park. The gazebo behind me now, just part of a big, brown, ugly, muddy lake. And over here behind me, the Utica Township Fire Department. Firefighters managed to get out the important emergency equipment, everything except for the Coke machine and a refrigerator. Over here, you can see some of the houses that are covered up to almost their rooftops. You really cannot appreciate the damage until you go out to survey on a boat. A lot of the residents here are going out to survey, take photographs for insurance purposes. One particular resident, a firefighter, also a town council member, took us out, a gentleman named Rick Reynolds. And once we went out with him, we were able to appreciate and understand why one resident said it seems like the world has come to an end.
My wife didn't grow up here, and it's very tough on her. She's having a real tough time with it. And, you know, what can you do? It takes away so much. I brought my third grader home from school, and he hadn't said anything about it. And we pulled up in front of the house, and water was lapping at the porch, and he just fell over and started crying. It's extremely traumatic to the children, and I hope the school system here has been good. I think they brought in counselors to help the kids. We're dealing with it the best we can, but you just have to keep busy. If you stop and think about it and dwell on it, it's very overwhelming. Very overwhelming. You realize the work, the vacations you planned for this year, they're gone.
The things you wanted to do with your kids, you're not going to have time to take them to soccer this year. Everybody's going to be fixing their homes. And
you see the worst of nature, but the best of humanity, I think, at a time like this. There are people in this town who have had little petty feuds for years, and they were working side by side, helping each other.
We are back live now, and Rick, of course, able to find a silver lining. Rick added that the residents know they live on the floodplain. They know that this land is not theirs, it belongs to the river, and every once in a while the river will claim that land back. The people here are trying to be optimistic about it. They do want to rebuild. They think that it's worth living here. I asked Rick, you know, what is it that brings people back despite the flooding that comes back over and over? And he says that, you know, you got to come back in the summer, first of all, and you also have to appreciate how safe it feels here and how warm it feels to be with other neighbors who are very, very tight-knit. Back to you, Bridget. The Red River continues to rise very slowly. It's supposed to go up to 26 feet above flood stage sometime later today. Right now you can see the water's covering up a good chunk of this road as well as what used to be a golf course. This is now covered up with 5 feet of water at some points. President Clinton is scheduled to come out and survey the damage firsthand tomorrow, and the most severe damage will be in downtown Grand Forks. It looks more like a steaming shell of a city right now. A fire over the weekend destroyed 11 buildings. 6 of them burned to the ground. This was over a 4-block span. Those buildings will have to be demolished soon. Right now there are teddy bears floating in the river. 3 firefighters suffered hypothermia trying to battle that fire. They had to trudge through the frigid, sewage-infested water. They were so frustrated they couldn't get to the fire because of all the cars blocking the way and because of the depth of the river. We're hearing more details now about what they went through. Outside, there's too much contaminated floodwater. Inside, there's not enough clean drinking water. The water and sewer systems are flooded out, hospitals closed, classes canceled. That's why authorities have called for a mandatory evacuation of more than 40,000 people on both sides of the river. The mayor here in Grand Forks says it could be 2 weeks before they restore that water treatment plant. There's a lot of anxiety on the part of those people who have evacuated, a lot of them staying at the Air Force shelter, people out of their jobs, out of their homes, not knowing when they can come back and rebuild. But there are signs of hope. You listen to the radio and you'll hear people volunteering their homes to house those people who are displaced. One man says he's got room for 6 to 10 people, smoker, no smoker, whatever. You know, bring your animals as well. Another person, a licensed nurse, she says she's got room for 3 senior citizens who can stay with her. A sign of just how proud and how cooperative the people here are. The mayor says this is a time for people to retreat, to get away, to regroup, to recharge, and then in a week or so when the river finally starts to go down, then it's time to rebuild. Clearly, people here, they've lost their city, but they have not lost their community. In Grand Forks, Farland Chang, NBC News. Well, John, the prosecution called on a handwriting expert this afternoon from the Los Angeles Police Department. That person will continue testifying tomorrow as well. She looked at 5 handwriting samples that Mikhail Markasev had written while in jail, and she said that there was a clear match on 4 out of those 5. And the 5th one is a probable match. One of the clear matches, she says, does include that letter that refers to a robbery gone bad. Now, the defense is, of course, disputing the authenticity, saying that the letter has all sorts of handwriting inconsistencies. Plus, the defense is questioning this person who turned in the letter, a jailhouse snitch. This person who Markasev had met while in jail, somebody who had been convicted of forgery at one time and who is now in a Texas penitentiary serving time on a rape conviction. So the defense is saying that these people, especially this person who turned in these letters, they've got the motive to lie, and so the jurors have to discount these people.
NBC's Farland Chang joins us live from the courthouse in Santa Monica right now. Farland, set it up. What do you got to tell us?
Well, Geraldo, Santa Monica, as you well know, the scene of yet another high-profile murder trial, but Superior Court Judge David Perez says that unlike the O.J. Simpson murder trial, this one will be no media circus. For one thing, no TV cameras inside the courtroom. For another, a very speedy jury selection process. In about a day and a half, a jury of 12 and 6 alternates have been chosen. Now, here's the breakdown on that jury. 6 men, 6 women, mostly middle-aged. As far as race, 7 whites, 3 blacks, and possibly 2 Hispanics. That's based on visual observation. We'll get the official confirmation from the court tomorrow. On Monday, opening statements, and then the prosecutor will start calling on the accused killer's old friends to turn on him.
19-year-old Mikhail Markasev's friends are the heart of the prosecution's case. Some of them are expected to testify that he admitted killing 27-year-old Ennis Cosby during a failed robbery attempt. Others will show how they led police to the location where a gun was found wrapped in a knit hat. And one jailhouse acquaintance will discuss turning in letters that Markasev allegedly wrote. But legal analyst Peter Aronella says the witnesses may be attacked as jailbirds, singing to save themselves.
I think the real question for the prosecution is whether the credibility of their central witnesses will withstand attack.
Also, the key witness, Cosby's friend Stephanie Crane, failed to pick Markasev out of a lineup. But the prosecution has physical evidence. Ballistics tests have linked the gun to Cosby's death. And new scientific tests will be used to match Markasev's DNA to DNA evidence on the knit hat.
And that physical evidence will speak far more loudly than the words of any witness whose credibility is in question, if the jury buys the science, and it's cutting-edge science, and there'll be a real battle there.
Tomorrow, the court will hear a motion by the prosecution to try to stop the defense from blaming any third party. As far as Markasev, if he is convicted, he faces life in prison without the possibility of parole. This trial was supposed to last 4 to 6 weeks, but today the attorneys say they could wrap it up in 2 weeks. Geraldo.
Farland Chang, thank you very much. We certainly will be following this case with great interest. Alan Dershowitz, it's nice to see you again.
Much. NBC's Farland Chang joins us right now live from Los Angeles. You know, Farland, God forbid it happened to us. I don't know if I could sit 10 feet away from a man accused of killing my flesh and blood without wanting to whack him. I wonder how Dr. Cosby, the doctors Cosby, responded to their day in court today.
Geraldo, Bill Cosby was very restrained. He was sitting in the front row. He had his hand to his face as he watched Michael Markasev enter the courtroom in handcuffs. No visible reaction on his face. He was serious. He was watching attentively throughout. He didn't have any comment afterwards either, and he did say in the past that he wants the trial to be a dignified proceeding. He wants justice to take its course, and indeed the defense attorney has commended Mr. Cosby for the low-key way that he has kept celebrity out of the trial.
You bring up low-key. I heard different reviews of Ann Ingalls, the assistant DA prosecuting this case. I heard that sometimes she was so low-key you could barely hear her voice inaudible. Did she finish weakly, or did she finish with a flourish?
I heard some legal experts say that they felt she put on a very strong, dramatic finish at the end. She played about 5 minutes of an audio tape, that audio tape of Markasev talking to his friend. It was a police surveillance tape, and on that tape he sounds very out of control, paranoid. He's using profanities over and over. He's suspicious that the phone is bugged. So that particular tape was quite devastating in a way, because as it was playing, you saw Markasev looking a bit awkward, a little bit rocking in his chair, looking down, a contrast from the way he has been in court, fairly organized, taking notes, listening very carefully, dressed in that business suit of his. So an interesting contrast.
So you think he might, in fact, end up being his own worst enemy?
Well, that's what some people are saying. You've got the audio tape where he sounds like he's out of control. You've got those jailhouse letters that he allegedly wrote where he refers to the robbery gone bad. And then there's that one witness who says he overheard Markasev admit to the crime and use the N-word to describe killing a black man and, quote, it's all over the news.
What about, what choice does the jury have? I didn't hear that. Can they go murder or manslaughter? Or are they, is it all or nothing in this case?
It will be an all or nothing situation. Either he's going to be convicted of this first-degree felony murder in the commission of an attempted robbery, or he's a free man. Now, the defense did want something in between. Actually, they wanted a second-degree murder charge. The defense said that there was nothing to support this attempted robbery aspect. since nothing was missing from Mr. Cosby's car. No Rolex watch was missing, no several $100s in cash was missing. So the defense wanted to give this option to the jury, but the prosecutor said there is that reference in the jailhouse letter to a robbery gone bad.
Okay,
there was also that threat.
Gotta go. First degree or nothing will get you for the verdict. I'll see you tomorrow. Happy trails, everybody. Goodbye, Roy. Trigger. See ya.
That's right, Felicia. It is the Super Bowl of the entertainment industry, and the anticipation is truly building. 1 billion people will be watching from all over the world on television, and a lucky 1,000 people will be watching right here in person. Some of them behind me, some of them have been camping out, as you said, for days. That's a major production, both inside and out, and we have with us right now the production manager on the outside. This is Tony Neely. How you doing, Tony?
Just fine. How you doing?
Not bad. Pretty hectic couple of weeks, months, or what?
Months, yes.
Yeah, now, right now we can see behind you some of the flowers and some of the workers there. What's going on back there?
Well, right now we're doing the finishing touches on the whole entire area.
NBC's Farland Chang is outside the Hartman home and joins us now with the latest. Farland?
Hello, Jody. Los Angeles police officers are getting ready now to remove the bodies of actor Phil Hartman and his wife from their home here in upscale Encino. Police have confirmed that the Hartman children were at home during the shootings. They're now trying to find out whether Hartman was killed by his wife before she took her own life. Arrived at the Hartman suburban Los Angeles home at 6:21 a.m. after neighbors reported hearing gunshots. Inside, police found a 9-year-old boy and a 6-year-old girl, both shaken and visibly upset.
The officers entered the location to investigate, and at that time they found a male, approximately 45 years of age, in bed, apparently dead as a result of a gunshot wound. They then investigated further and found a female, also dead of an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound in the same room.
They say 40-year-old Bryn Hartman killed herself in the master bedroom, the same room where her husband's body was found on the bed. They're not commenting on reports the couple had been having marital problems, but several neighbors and show business colleagues say the couple appeared happy.
Phil Hartman was probably the least likely fellow that you'd think this would happen to. Always funny, always invigorating, always wonderful. And I never had any inkling that there was any big trouble in his life. And I'm shocked. This is just shocking.
Detectives continue to search the estate for clues and predict a slow, methodical investigation. Meanwhile, Hollywood prepares to mourn the loss of another star. Phil Hartman once said, "What's remarkable about his career is that it has been marked by steady progress. No sudden up, no sudden downfalls either, until today." Back to you, Jody.
Certainly a sudden end to it. Farland Chang in Encino. Thank you very much for that update, Farland.
Sure thing.
NBC's Farland Chang joins us. Maybe he has answers from outside Phil Hartman's home in Encino, California. Anything more, Farland, on the motive?
Although police are still not saying why someone killed Phil Hartman on his bed or why his wife killed herself. There was no sign of struggle inside, but police are looking into whether the family had any personal or financial problems, also into reports that the family had some marital problems. The police have interviewed the 2 children. They're also planning to interview friends and family. A couple hours ago, the coroner came by, took the bodies out. The bodies were transported side by side. The coroner will try to determine the precise time and cause of death. And then tomorrow, the investigators will come back again to comb through the scene, trying to find some more clues. They say it's going to be a slow and methodical process. Geraldo?
You know, Farland, you got a 6-year-old here, a 9-year-old. Where are they? How are they doing? What's going on with the kids?
Well, the police described these children as traumatized. They were found very visibly shaken when the officers arrived. The 9-year-old boy was standing in the open front doorway. The 6-year-old was farther inside. They've been in the care of the police all day. They were also interviewed, and now they are in the care of relatives who came out to meet the police.
Any more from the neighbors? I know Encino very well. It's a very upscale area. I don't know. There's not a whole lot of, neighborly block chit-chat, but anything more from those neighbors?
Well, one neighbor said that she had just received a very happy phone message from Mrs. Hartman and everything seemed fine. Another neighbor said that she knew of some family marital problems, but she just never imagined it would come to this.
Okay, Farland.
This is, of course, a very upscale neighborhood, as you mentioned.
Farland Chang, thank you very much. At a time, folks. Thank you very much for watching. Obviously, this is a terrible tragedy. Phil Hartman, gone at the age of 50. See ya.
This is Farland Chang in Los Angeles. England's Princess Diana was seriously injured in a car crash in Paris early Sunday morning Paris time. Killed in the crash was Dodi Fayed, Egyptian businessman said to be her boyfriend, as well as the car's driver. There are reports that the car was being chased by paparazzi. Back to Brian Williams.
On the Caribbean island of Montserrat tonight, rumbling and waiting. There's more evidence.
President Clinton is scheduled to arrive within the hour. He'll be flying into the Grand Forks Air Force Base about 10 miles from here. Right now, I'm at the University of North Dakota. This is where the Federal and State Emergency Command Center is based. Already, it has had to move its base twice because of the rising Red River, which is normally about a mile away in that direction. Even at this high elevation, you've got some problems now. The road there is flooded because of the backed up sewers and also because of some overflowing tributary, the English Coulee. And over here you see some National Guard units. They're only allowing emergency crews down the road toward downtown. They're trying to build a dike, a new dike that will spare what little of Grand Forks has not yet been inundated. President Clinton will also be listening to the stories of human suffering. Now, 50,000 people on both sides of the river have been displaced, many of them in shelters, many just sitting on their cots wondering what's happened to their home, when they can return. One person, Loanne Enger, says that she is just too numb to even cry. She doesn't want to look at any of the videotape of the destruction. She figures that way it'll just go away. It's crazy, she says, but that's her way of dealing with it. She also figures that she and her husband will be out of work. She works at a tanning salon, but the tanning beds are all underwater. And her husband works in a beet field, but those fields are all contaminated. Another person is Wanda Puppy. She escaped with only photos of her late husband and of her grandchildren. She also left behind her car. It was 13 years old, but she says that's all she had. And another family, Dawn and Jennifer Hildy, they only had one day's change of clothes. They didn't have time to even get toys for their 4-year-old son, Anson. Despite these stories of suffering, you'll hear wonderful stories of compassion over at Mayville State University nearby. Churches and volunteers are providing free food and free cots for the kids, free movies, free swimming, and they're also collecting money so they can give out $25 per person, no questions asked. Over at a high school, the seniors had their senior prom, but they canceled their banquet. They diverted the money instead to the flood victims. The Red Cross says you too can help by contacting 1-800-HELP-NOW. You can give a cash donation using your credit card. And it looks like that assistance will be needed for quite some time to come. The Red River still fluctuating at 26 feet above flood stage, and it'll be continuing well above flood stage for many more days to come. Farland Chang, NBC News, Grand Forks.
Maria, so you can get a sense that we are a very diverse country and we have a lot of differing opinions, but that's a story from Wall Street in New York City. Now let's go to Burbank and my colleague Farland Chang. Farland?
Hello, Nanette, talking to people here at the Donut Prince who are starting the day off with coffee, donuts. Over here, Wallace Friedman, a Republican and a lawyer. Mr. Friedman, what did you think about the President's State of the Union speech last night?
I think he promised something for everybody. There was nothing, he missed nobody. He promised to the parents, to the elderly, to the disabled. You just wonder about his sincerity, though, because in light of what's happened up to now, you don't know whether you can believe him. And even so, is there enough money to do these programs?
Okay.
It's just a question.
All right, thank you. And over here, real briefly, we have Jerry Stout. Jerry, you heard the defense lawyer's arguments. Were you impressed?
No, I thought it was pretty soporific, tell the truth. I sat there and I dozed off, and his presentation was so low key and all that it didn't reach me at all.
All right, thank you. Well, there you have it. Two people who were not impressed with the president's bold 1-2 punch from yesterday. Back to you.
Thanks very much, Farland. And still to come, we have two people who were in that Senate chamber yesterday when Charles Ruff defended the president. Much more to come. We'll be right back.
That they believe Key West should secede from the nation. Sort of a humorous look at everything.
Thank you very much. So independent there. It's not even on the front page of the Key West paper. Let's see what they're talking about in Burbank, California. Farland Chang is there. Good morning.
Good morning, Chris. We're here at the Donut Prince, where people are reading the morning papers over coffee and donuts. Here's the headline in the LA Daily News. Clinton's bold day, a 1-2 punch, a flattering picture of the president gesturing to embrace both Republicans and Democrats as he talks about equal pay for women. And then in the Los Angeles Times, a more factual headline, Clinton sets out vision, defense opens. His address outlines sweeping plan, a rescue of Social Security. And a picture of the president acknowledging the widows of the slain Capitol Hill police officers. And then farther over, a picture of the White House counsel denying perjury and obstruction of justice charges. There's an interesting sidebar article here that talks about the president aiming to show that the Republicans, that he remains a force. The president's tone in his speech was lofty and conciliatory, implicitly dismissing his Senate impeachment trial as a sideshow. In both of the papers, the editorial pages praise the president's idea as worthy of consideration, his idea for shoring up Social Security. And in particular, the LA Times says that Clinton and his foes should agree their mutual dislike and distrust cannot be allowed to stand in the way of the nation's needs. The trial possibly could go on for months, which is especially nonsensical, considering that Clinton cannot stand for re-election next year, and the disconnection between the world of the Beltway and everywhere else continues. Back to you.
Thanks very much, Farland, and that's a view from coast to coast. Very interesting couple of lines in the Washington Post I want to read for you, and kind of an example of the surreal events we've been seeing. It says, impeachment at lunchtime and a State of the Union address before bed. Just another day in Bill Clinton's Washington.